Hey, how you doing? This is Juha Tunkelo. I just came back from an icy dip into the sea, and I'm nice and rosy. So thought, why not jump in front of a live and do another one of those buyer's brain kind of nuggets. And although this one is kind of like more like a buyer's heart nugget, head, heart, whatever. They both relate. And this one I call empathy copy decoded. And empathy copy, or just, let's call it what it is. It's just relating to another person, and in this case, a complete stranger, when we're talking about in terms of marketing. But of course, in life, every day we relate to our close ones, our co-workers, and a lady at the counter, whatever. I talked about this as early as 2013, I think, 12, 13, something like that. Some of you might even remember. But only a year ago today, I started teaching this at an event, and I did three presentations of this last year, and I thought I might do it this today, but I'll just talk over some of the points that are more interesting and to get the ball rolling. It's kind of a long. So this is like a large presentation that I have, and let's just go through a few points that might be interesting. All right, let's stop being boring. All right. So what is this whole empathy thing? You see, a lot of people view marketing, and especially copywriting, as this formulaic kind of thing that you can just have, let's have the particular headlines, particular bullets, and da-da-da-da-da. You just put together a puzzle, and guess what? Sales happens. And, to some extent, it is like that, but there's a big but, which I like and cannot deny. So, and that is that you need to relate to another person, and also a stranger at that. So I do marketing and copy a little bit differently than your average guy, I suppose. I've noticed, and you should probably do that too. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I'm not making any assumptions, but anyway, empathy is a shortcut to results, whether it's in personal life or in business, in any market. I've used these tactics in just about everything. I won't bore you by listing all the dozens of different markets and whatnot, and going through my results and such. This is not a sales presentation, so let's just get to it. So, what is empathy not about? So, some of the common misconceptions is that it's some kind of touchy-feely gimmick that people talk about being heart-centered and whatnot, but real marketers have no use for it. That's not what I'm talking about. It's also not about, this is the mind bender. It's not about what you think someone else might think about. Let's say about your product, if you're selling something. And this is especially hard for coaches, I've noticed, because they see all these people and they have the same problem, and as a coach you're like, yeah, I've got your solution, and they tend to give the same solution to everybody, and they make the same assumptions. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, let's get back to that. And it's also not the same as having sympathy for someone. I mean, you can have sympathy. It's a good thing. It's a virtue. Let alone pity. That's a topic I don't even want to touch. But okay, it's not that. It's not pity. It's not sympathy. It's not thinking you know somebody. It's actually relating to people. All right. So what is it? It's a way to sort of directly look into somebody, let's say the soul of your client, to their hidden needs, their fears, their dreams, aspirations, what's at the very core of them. And it's also a way to see what you're doing through the eyes of the other person. Being able to look at yourself through the eyes of another. And this is useful, in the business scenario, so you can steer them in the right direction. And it gives you sort of fresh eyes if you allow yourself to do this and put your biases aside, to see how a real encounter between yourself and another person can happen, and therefore sales can happen. And it's also about receiving direct input, of course, listening carefully the way they talk about their problems and what they wish would happen, and all of that stuff. And that's usually what people in business who have some degree of success do kind of well. But that's just step one. So in practical terms, what does it have to do with marketing? It's about kind of living and experiencing what your customer is actually going through, and not what you might experience. There's a big difference, because you might think that you are your client, and somebody, sometimes it's true, but most of the time it's not. So in order to do that, you have to kind of take this meat suit off of you and put on another person's, psyche and maybe even body, if you're selling something physical, let's say fitness training or what have you. And when you are embodying somebody else, there are exercises that I go through with people in my workshops. When you do that, you'll see through the eyes of somebody completely different, and that's when you're starting to get it. You're starting to get into the nuts and bolts of what empathy has to do with marketing. So you learn to identify with your customers' needs, problems, dreams, disappointments, capabilities, all of that good stuff. And when you actually express empathy, you'll gain your customers' trust and attention. Pretty good, huh? And when you have true empathy, not just, oh, poor you, I see what you're doing, what you're going through, but real, ability to relate, and you can get that in, as an actual part of your marketing. It brings a certain authenticity, which is a kind of a used up word as well, but it is what it is. So, okay, let's try to super condense this. So you need a kind of a double mission. Generate sales from within yourself, because you are the one selling something. And we are always selling, there's a long story behind that as well. But you also need to trigger buying behavior in your customer. So on one hand, you'll need some direct response copy to show how superior your offer is and all of that stuff. What are the benefits and where the appeal is. But on the other hand, you'll also need to get your customers' attention, capture their core, which we talked about, and awaken what I guess, for lack of a better word, their soul, using actual empathy. So when you combine these two approaches, your sales message starts to come alive. It doesn't sound fake or contrived or, all the things that, mediocre marketing can sound like. So, so how well does this work? In my experience, it works so well that it's kind of staggering. I've had, let's say, online courses that sell maybe, do an initial launch. They sell maybe 200, 300 units, and we rework some parts of it, some parts of the launch, some parts of the critical parts of the marketing, using Empathy Open and other emotional triggers. And my experience was that the first time I really used this, it was about 4x, from a little over 200 units over to 880 units. So it's pretty good. I thought, okay, well, maybe we're onto something. And so over the years, for online courses, it's anywhere from 2x to 5x. In e-commerce, well, that kind of depends on a few things, but let's say to 2x to even to 8x. That takes a little explaining, but for another time. I don't have any case studies. I didn't want to bring any slides to something like this, but even selling heavy machinery, we got 3x. So it's kind of critical, and it's kind of crazy that it's not being talked about, not a lot anyway. There really are no limits, because human nature always responds, and if you can touch that, then you got something. And there's a lot of examples of the Empathy Open, and I'm not going to turn this into a teaching session, but it can be an emotional story about your client who overcame adversity and became victorious. There's this metaphor involved. It can be a first-person story of yourself overcoming the same obstacles they're now facing, things like that. And that's a lot of things. It could be as simple as an email subject line that goes like, "Hey dude, I understand what you're going through, ... That's just curiosity generating subject line. But of course you have to follow that up with in your opening in the email. So personally, I wouldn't dream of doing a real campaign or a launch or any meaningful marketing without using, let's say, the Empathy Open, Empathy Motivators, and an Empathy Close. Those are some of the things that we're now teaching. And I'll have another session with slides and all, but this is not for that, but just to get the ball rolling and get one of my absolute favorite subjects started. So let me know, are you using any of these kinds of things, or are you finding it really difficult to relate to your prospects? Because I hear that a lot. And there's exercises like empathy mapping, which I've done in a couple of actually, I think about 4 events now. And some people are like you can see light bulbs going off, and some people are like scratching their heads. What does this mean? So it's very individual how people take to this, and it's really fascinating. Really fascinating. Anyway, this is something I'm probably gonna be harping on quite a bit in different forms. So if you liked what you hear, there'll be more. So have a good one. See you later.